Either you start covering more of the bills starting next month, or we need to rethink this whole relationship. She didn't raise her voice when she said it. No anger, no shaking hands. Just a calm statement delivered across our kitchen table like a finalized decision. Her laptop was already open, spreadsheet glowing between us, numbers lined up as if they'd been rehearsed. We'd been living together just under 3 years. Same apartment the whole time, same routines, same unspoken understanding about how things worked. I paid rent and utilities. She covered groceries, subscriptions, and day-to-day stuff. We both worked full-time. It wasn't perfectly split, but it was agreed. And until recently, it had never been a problem. That morning, it suddenly was. She tapped the screen with her finger. Rent was going up in 2 months. Not unexpected. The landlord had warned everyone in the building. We'd even talked about it briefly weeks earlier, in a casual, we'll figure it out way. What I hadn't expected was how quickly it turned into an ultimatum. You make more than I do, she said, like it was a settled fact. It's only fair that you take on more. I asked how much more she was thinking. She gave a number that made my stomach tighten. It wasn't a small adjustment. It was a full rebalancing. Rent, utilities, and part of what she called overflow expenses. I told her that number didn't match my actual take-home pay. She waved her hand dismissively. After bonuses, after everything, you're fine. You always figure it out. That was the first moment I felt something shift. Not panic, not anger. Just the realization that she was talking about my finances with more certainty than I felt myself. I asked to see her side of the budget. She hesitated just for a second, then clicked to another tab. Credit cards, 2 of them. Balances I hadn't seen before. Not small ones either, thousands. Interest rates highlighted in red. Minimum payments barely touching the principal. She said it was nothing dramatic. Just travel, some online shopping, things adding up over time. She said everyone carries some debt. I asked when it started. She said over the last year. I asked why she hadn't mentioned it. She shrugged and said she didn't think it mattered since she was handling it. But she wasn't handling it. The spreadsheet made that clear. Late fees, interest compounding quietly month after month, a situation that had been getting worse while I thought we were stable. Suddenly, the timing of the ultimatum made sense. I asked if the rent increase was the real issue, or if this was about her cards. She didn't answer directly. She said she was tired of feeling stressed and behind, and that having me cover more would give her room to breathe. You could fix this pretty easily, she added. That word landed wrong. Fix. Like my income was a tool meant to correct decisions I wasn't part of. Like the stress existed independently of the choices that created it. I told her I wasn't against helping, but I wasn't comfortable changing everything without a real conversation. I said we should sit down and look at both sides honestly before making demands. She leaned back in her chair and crossed her arms. I just don't want this to turn into a fight. I told her it already wasn't a discussion. It was an ultimatum. That's when she mentioned the loan, almost casually, like an afterthought. She said she'd taken out a personal loan a few months earlier to consolidate some of the debt. She said the payments were manageable for now, but if rent went up and I didn't contribute more, things could get tight. I asked why I was hearing about it now. She said she didn't want to worry me. But now that the pressure was on her, worrying me suddenly felt acceptable. She repeated the choice again, softer this time. Either I step up financially, or we need to rethink our future. No yelling, no threats. Just a clean line drawn in front of me. I didn't respond right away. I told her I needed time to think. She nodded, already convinced she knew the outcome. In her mind, this was practical, rational. Of course I'd do it. That's what supportive partners do. I went to work that day with the spreadsheet burned into my head. Not the numbers, but the assumptions behind them. That my stability was there to absorb her instability. That shared finances meant shared consequences, but only when it benefited her. By the time I got home that evening, I wasn't thinking about how to fix it anymore. I was thinking about how long it had been broken without me being allowed to see it. The conversation didn't end that morning. It just paused. That night after dinner, she brought it up again, like it was unfinished paperwork. Same calm tone, same laptop. This time she'd added notes in the margins, projected scenarios, different versions of, if you cover this, I can handle that. I asked if she'd cut any spending on her end. She said she already had, then admitted she hadn't yet, but planned to. Eventually. I asked about the credit cards again. She said they were under control. I asked about the loan. She said it was temporary. Every answer came with a qualifier, a future tense, a promise that depended on me agreeing first. I told her I wasn't comfortable committing to something open-ended. I said if I took on more now, it needed to be clear what changed on her side. That's when her patience thinned. She said I was being transactional, that relationships aren't spreadsheets, that if I loved her, I wouldn't nickel and dime her during a stressful period. I pointed out that she was the one who brought the spreadsheet. She dismissed that, said she only did it because I respond to numbers. Then she said something that made everything snap into focus. I wouldn't be in this position if I didn't have to keep up, she said. You like a certain lifestyle. I asked what that meant. She said clothes, trips, dinners out, things we'd done together, things she never said no to, things she chose just as often as I did. But now they were framed as my preferences, my standards, my responsibility. I realized then that the debt wasn't just hidden, it had been justified internally for a long time. And now that it was unsustainable, the solution wasn't change, it was transfer. I told her I needed a few days to think. She didn't like that. She said delaying was unfair. That uncertainty stressed her out, that I was leaving her hanging while knowing full well I could solve this. I asked what would happen if I said no. She looked at me and said, then I guess I know where I stand. Not angry, just disappointed, as if I'd failed a test I didn't agree to take. That night I slept on the couch. Not because she asked me to, because I didn't want to lie next to someone who saw me as a safety net instead of a partner. The next 2 days were quiet but tense. She was polite, distant, on her phone more than usual. I noticed packages arriving, small ones, nothing outrageous, but enough to tell me the habits hadn't changed, even under pressure. On the third day, I sat down alone and ran my own numbers. What covering more would actually mean. Not just rent, but the ripple effects, the expectation, the precedent. I knew how this would go. The first adjustment would become the new normal. The next crisis would justify another shift. And every time I hesitated, it would be framed as a lack of support. I wasn't angry at her. I was clear. That evening, I told her my decision. I said I wasn't going to restructure our finances the way she wanted. I said I was willing to keep things as they were until the lease renewal, but I wasn't taking on additional responsibility for debt I didn't create or know about. She stared at me like I'd spoken a different language. She said I was abandoning her when she needed me most, that this proved she couldn't rely on me, that she'd defended me to friends who thought I was selfish. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just repeated that I wasn't agreeing to it. That's when she doubled down. She said if I wasn't willing to step up now, there was no point pretending we had a future, that she couldn't feel secure with someone who hesitated when things got hard. I nodded. I told her I understood. Then I told her I'd be moving out. She laughed at first, thought I was bluffing. Then she realized I wasn't. I said I'd cover my share of rent through the end of the month, as agreed. After that, I'd remove myself completely. No shared expenses, no overlap. She asked where she was supposed to get the money. I told her that wasn't something I could solve for her anymore. By the end of the week, my clothes were boxed. My name was removed from the shared subscriptions. I forwarded my mail, quiet, methodical steps. The first real consequence showed up before I even carried the last box out. She called me from the living room, voice tight, asking if I'd already canceled the automatic transfer I used to send her each month for shared expenses. I told her yes. There was a long silence after that. Final update. After I moved out, I didn't block her. I didn't need to. The distance did the work for me. The first week was quiet, no messages, no calls, just the absence of shared routines, no groceries appearing, no utilities getting paid automatically, no cushion. Then the cracks started showing. She texted asking if I'd accidentally canceled the streaming accounts. I hadn't. I just removed my card. She said it locked her out during a show. I didn't respond. A few days later, she asked about the internet bill. The autopay had failed. She wanted to know which login I used. I sent her the account email and nothing else. By the second week, the tone changed. She said the credit card company was calling more often, that the loan payment had gone through, but it wiped out what she needed for rent. She asked if I could float her just until she got things stabilized. I didn't reply. She started posting more online, photos out with friends, captions about starting over and choosing peace. It looked confident on the surface, but I knew the timing. It's easier to project stability than to actually have it. Mutual friends started reaching out carefully, asking how I was doing, mentioning that she was stressed, that things were harder than expected. I kept my answers neutral. We broke up. I moved out. I'm fine. I wasn't involved when her landlord sent the first notice about late rent. I only knew because a friend mentioned she was looking for a roommate urgently, someone to take over half the costs, someone low drama. Apparently, a few people came to look at the place. Apparently, most didn't stay long once the numbers were clear. Her job didn't change. Her income didn't suddenly increase. What changed was the absence of my margin. Without it, everything had to stand on its own. The cards, the loan, the lifestyle she justified by assuming I'd always be there to soften the edges. She messaged me one last time about a month after I left. She said she didn't realize how much I'd been doing behind the scenes, that she thought things would balance out once the pressure was off, that she felt blindsided by how fast everything unraveled. I read it. I didn't respond. A few weeks later, I heard she'd moved out of the apartment entirely. Too expensive. Too many reminders. She downsized, sold some things, picked up extra shifts. None of that involved me. I never told her, "I told you so." I never explained my side again. There was nothing to clarify. The system spoke for itself once I stepped out of it. I'm in a smaller place now. Cheaper. Quieter. My expenses are predictable. My savings are intact. There's no spreadsheet waiting on the table when I come home. Sometimes people ask if I regret not trying harder. I don't. I didn't leave because of money. I left because of the assumption that my role was to absorb consequences I didn't create, while being told that questioning it meant I didn't care. Once I removed myself, everything fell into its actual shape. And for the first time in a long time, that shape didn't include me holding it together.